In the middle of the 20th century, a terrifying future loomed. Respected experts, looking at the numbers, saw an unavoidable catastrophe. Too many mouths, not enough food. They predicted mass famine, a global starvation unlike anything in human history. Yet here we are, over 8 billion strong, with more food available than ever before. How did we escape that Malthusian nightmare? The answer lies in the intertwined stories of three brilliant minds: a chemist, an engineer, and an agricultural scientist whose combined genius reshaped the planet and helped feed billions. But this victory came with a hidden cost, a consequence that still shapes our world and raises new questions about the sustainability of our feast. We'll explore how these solutions, born of desperation, created a new set of challenges that humanity is grappling with today. The fear of overpopulation outstripping food supply isn't new. It was articulated as early as 1798 by Thomas Robert Malthus, who argued that population growth unchecked would always outpace our ability to produce sustenance. For a long time, the world's farmers relied on natural sources of nitrogen to fertilize their crops: animal manure, guano from distant islands, and limited nitrate deposits. But as populations swelled into the early 1900s, scientists saw a looming nitrogen crisis. They understood that the planet's fixed nitrogen supply would soon hit a hard ceiling, limiting agriculture's capacity and threatening a global food shortage. The very air we breathe is 78% nitrogen, but in a form plants can't use directly. The challenge was to break that incredibly strong triple bond, to fix atmospheric nitrogen into a reactive form that could enrich the soil. The future of humanity depended on it. Enter Fritz Haber, a German chemist. In 1909, after years of relentless work, Haber achieved a scientific miracle. He successfully demonstrated the synthesis of ammonia from atmospheric nitrogen and hydrogen under immense pressure and high temperatures. It was a laboratory breakthrough, a small-scale reaction in a flask, but it was proof of concept. Humanity could finally pull a vital nutrient directly from the sky. The Haber process was born, offering a potential escape from the nitrogen crisis. Yet a laboratory demonstration is a world away from industrial-scale production. The immediate challenge was transforming a delicate chemical reaction into a robust manufacturing process, capable of producing hundreds of thousands of tons of fertilizer every year. Without that leap, Haber's brilliant chemistry would remain a scientific curiosity, unable to avert the looming catastrophe. This is where Carl Bosch, an engineer at the chemical giant BASF, stepped in. Bosch faced an engineering nightmare. He had to design reactors that could withstand temperatures of 500 degrees Celsius and pressures hundreds of times greater than atmospheric, all while containing highly corrosive gases. There were no existing materials capable of handling such extremes. Bosch and his team pioneered new alloys, developed massive compressors, and engineered intricate processes. In 1913, just 4 years after Haber's initial success, Bosch's team achieved the impossible. Commercial production of nitrogen fertilizer began. The Haber-Bosch process was now a reality, capable of producing synthetic ammonia on an industrial scale. This wasn't just a chemical process, it was a societal revolution. Suddenly, the bottleneck of natural nitrogen was gone, and the limits on food production seemed to vanish. Vaclav Smil, a renowned expert on energy and human development, later estimated that nearly half the world would go hungry without this synthetic ammonia production. Yet even with abundant fertilizer, another challenge loomed. The plants themselves needed to evolve. Despite the massive increase in fertilizer availability, population growth continued its relentless climb, especially in the developing world. By the early 1960s, global food fears intensified dramatically. Experts warned that famine was not just possible, but inevitable across vast swaths of Asia, Africa, and Latin America. Paul Ehrlich's 1968 book, The Population Bomb, chillingly predicted mass starvation, becoming one of the most famous and alarming population forecasts ever made. The Haber-Bosch process had averted one crisis, but humanity still seemed to be hurtling towards another. The problem wasn't just a lack of nitrogen, it was that the existing crop varieties couldn't efficiently translate that newfound nitrogen into edible grain. Farmers were pouring on fertilizer, but the plants, optimized for scarcity, would grow tall and weak, collapsing under the weight of their own grain. This phenomenon, known as lodging, meant that increased fertilizer could paradoxically lead to lower usable yields. The next breakthrough wouldn't come from a chemical lab, but from a dusty test field in Mexico. In 1944, an American agricultural scientist named Borlaug joined a Rockefeller Foundation program in Mexico. His mission to increase wheat yields and reduce Mexico's reliance on imported food. Borlaug wasn't content with incremental improvements. He spent years in the fields, crossbreeding thousands of wheat varieties, often battling plant diseases in the hot Mexican sun. He broke traditional breeding rules, working at high altitudes and then low, forcing his experimental strains to adapt. His critical insight was to develop dwarf and semi-dwarf wheat varieties. These new plants had stronger, shorter stalks, allowing them to absorb more nitrogen fertilizer without lodging. They could now hold more grain, converting the abundant nutrients into significantly higher yields. By 1956, Mexico, once a wheat importer, achieved self-sufficiency. Borlaug's miracle seeds proved their worth. Then came the true test. From 1965 to 1968, India and Pakistan faced severe food shortages. Amidst looming catastrophe, Borlaug's semi-dwarf wheat varieties were introduced on a massive scale. The results were dramatic. Wheat production in both countries soared, pulling them back from the brink of widespread famine. This was the Green Revolution, a term that would become synonymous with Borlaug's work. In 1970, Norman Borlaug was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize, not a science prize. The Nobel Committee recognized that agricultural productivity was directly linked to global peace and stability. They cited him for having given a well-founded hope. Borlaug's Green Revolution technologies, coupled with the continued supply of Haber Bosch fertilizer, spread globally from the 1970s through the 1990s. Countries across Asia, Africa, and Latin America saw substantial increases in food production, defying the grim predictions of widespread starvation. Today, our world population exceeds 8 billion, a number that would have seemed impossible to feed just a century ago. Over half of this global population, by some estimates, could not be sustained without the reactive nitrogen fertilizer created through the Haber-Bosch process. And Borlaug's high-yield genetics continue to underpin much of modern agriculture. He famously called the Green Revolution a temporary success, not a permanent solution, understanding that scientific innovation alone couldn't indefinitely outrun population growth and environmental strain. He was right. While billions were fed, the Green Revolution also locked us into a system heavily reliant on synthetic inputs, fertilizers, pesticides, and intensive irrigation. These practices bring their own costs, groundwater depletion, pollution, and the challenging question of long-term environmental sustainability. The immediate crisis was averted, but a new complex balance had to be struck. The story of Haber, Bosch, and Borlaug is a powerful testament to human ingenuity in the face of existential threats. It shows how scientific breakthroughs, when coupled with engineering and persistent application, can reshape the trajectory of civilization. Their work undeniably saved hundreds of millions, perhaps billions, from hunger. Yet it also serves as a crucial reminder that every solution brings new challenges. The very systems designed to feed us now demand careful stewardship to protect the planet that sustains us. We continue to live with the profound legacy of their work, navigating the trade-offs between abundance and environmental health. The question now isn't just how to feed 8 billion people, but how to do so sustainably, equitably, and without sacrificing the future. What other hidden innovations do you think have had such a profound impact on the modern world? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this exploration compelling, consider subscribing to delve deeper into the stories that shaped our history.